talking about supporting the machinery of war, Tertullian and Origen, who was equally clear, prayed for the success of the army, prayed that they would, destroy the other army on the field and that there would be victory. So that there's, and I know it may seem like there's a contradiction.
It's a little bit like the Christians are watching the cockfight down there. Let the pagans destroy themselves, but go team, go!
Right.
And there's just something sick about that.
Well, right.
Well, in our culture, yes, because again, we have a volunteer force. It's a little bit, it's strange.
Mm-hmm.
It's strange.
It's strange.
For the Romans, it was a paid professional army. Right? They were paid. They weren't conscripts.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There may have been conscripts at the lowest levels, but I'm not. Does anybody
Well,
know that?
they had different corps. I mean,
Right.
they had a professional corps. I don't know at what point they developed. I think it's the hoplites. But at some point, I think they had conscripts. I don't know. I have to go back and look. You would know better.
That's a good question.
I don't
You
know.
would know?
Well,
Sounds like a Wikipedia research document.
A new career.
Yeah, I attended a Bible study at the Orthodox Church last week up in DC, and they were talking about a early Ethiopian saint, sub-Saharan saint. I don't remember his name, who was monastic, and he had a community of people in Ethiopia. They were attacked by robbers. He's an old man at this point. He dismisses all of the young novitiates and tells them to go away, and who want to fight the robbers. And he goes out with all the older men to confront the robbers. No, non-violence. They're all martyred in non-violence.
Go to Plan B.
Well, and the question that you raise, Audrey, I think is also the question to raise when we're looking at the pacifist writers of today, because, and I don't know, I would need to read more to know the answer. But one of the questions that I have about pacifists is, are they opposed to the machine of society and government? I don't think so. But society and government, at least in this world, have to function through the use of force, either through military force or through police force. Certainly, there's always force involved. And so I think that for some pacifists, the key is to live out the teachings of Christ on the individual level for yourself. But again, and it's like, I think it goes back just to the same thing the early church fathers thought. They weren't opposed to, remember Paul, it's Paul himself, I don't think was opposed to war, personally. I mean, but regardless, you see in the early church fathers that they did accept the Roman guards when they were going on their journeys. You see that they do pray for the army. You see that they do engage culture. So it's interesting. It is an interesting question, is, why don't you follow, how can you believe something on an individual level and yet still support the machinery in other ways, whether it's through prayer or typing on the laptop, back at the talk. In fact, probably that would be a great place to put a non-combatant, because they're doing a job that needs to be done and it's very important.
But as Father David says, how well would they do it?
Presumably they would, presumably.
Is their heart in doing it well?
Well, they've applied for 1.08 or 1-08 conscientious objection.
I mean, almost involuntarily.
Right.
Almost involuntarily.
You have to know the soldier.
How about this idea for the OA classification? There seems to be a commonality between everybody, which is that there is a belief that there are worse things than death. In other words, there's an ability in sacrificing your own life, whether you fight or not. And if you fight, you're fighting not just for yourself, but for the guy next to you, and you're sacrificing your life, or you're risking your life for the others. Whether you believe in actually using violence or not is kind of what they're disagreeing on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a different way of looking at it.
yes, there's also, again, you're dealing with an organization. If someone is in one section of the organization, and just from a human resources point of view, they're not doing very well in this particular office or this particular company, they'll work with that person. They'll counsel them. They'll tell them. They'll probably get a lot of informal pressure to conform and to do right, at least by the standards of that particular company. And if that doesn't seem to be working, really folks like me, like the chaplain or other individuals, say, look, this is not really working well. It's not working well for this individual. It's not working well for the platoon and for the company. We don't want to. You don't, particularly non-commissioned officers and officers, really want to make sure that they're not rewarding a soldier for bad behavior. But at the same time, there's work that needs to be done. So it's a judgment call. It takes wisdom, and eventually that person may stay and be moved, like I said, to another particular section in the company, or they may pull them out of the organization and place them someplace else where they can start over with a new group, but with the understanding you're not going to be, hopefully, we're not going to hold against you what has happened before. You get a fresh start, but here's a job that you have to do. And then they evaluate them based on that particular job that they're doing at that given moment. Hopefully not holding against them what happened before. Realistically, does it come out? It may not. But then you write them up. And you use just regular human resources or work concepts to motivate someone to do a good job. But in the military, it can go beyond writing a bad report to, okay, you have a series of bad reports. We suspect that this deserves maybe perhaps administrative discipline, in Article 15. You realize this. So there are ways of dealing with someone. So really, they're, in a sense, organizationally, if they don't have the heart for it, there are ways to help them.
Actually, the Army's probably better at that than most state bureaucracies or federal bureaucracies. They're better at it, in my opinion, after being an Army brat and then 20 years as an Army wife. I think they're probably better at it. And I now work for state government, where deadwood is all over the place. Obstructive deadwood.
Because it's a lot. Because the Army is more of a lifestyle. I mean, and I don't mean that the other jobs can't be, but the Army is something you kind of.
Where you move through. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of movement in the labor force, in the military, and you don't get used to people. You don't get to sit there in one place, stasis for 15 years, and you can do that elsewhere, but you can't do it in the military.
Right.
Plus, it's harder. If you're deployed or on an exercise, you're not only working with the people that you work with, you live with them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
a cozy relationship is, by definition, is going to be limited time-wise, and you have to maintain it as a friendship after that. But the positions aren't going to stay there, the way they do in other bureaucracies. And a person like that would have many eyes looking at them over time. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask this on conscientious objection. What is the military's conscientious objection policy? The military, the U.S. military, say about a soldier's responsibility under jus ad bellum, the justice of going to war. Does a soldier have any type of a duty or an ability to make decisions about the justice of a particular war?
Particular war or particular action?
A particular war.
Ad bellum.
Yeah.